بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين والصلاة والسلام على حبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المذلومين المنتخبين المنتجبين الذين كلامهم نور وأمرهم رشد ووصيتهم التقوى وفعلهم الخير وعادتهم الإحسان وسجيتهم الكرم لا سيما للحسين المذلوم المقتول المجروح الأدشان المذبوح من القفاء في يوم عاشوراء في أرض كربلاء بلا جرم ولا خطأ الذي غسله دم وكفنه رمال كربلاء مقطع الأعضاء مسلوب الإمامة والرداء يا ليتنا كنا معكم فنفوز فوزا عظيما اللهم صل على قال مولانا أبو عبد الله الصادق صلوات الله عليه السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله صلى على محمد وآل محمد. The sixth Imam alayhi salam, when he was asked to give and present a ziyarah for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that could be recited in all times, at all places, most especially in Karbala itself, the Imam presented what was known as ziyaratul mutlaqa, or that ziyarah which I can recite at any time, at any place, with any purpose for Imam Hussein alayhi salam, which we also know as ziyaratul waritha, or the ziyarah of he who is the inheritor. As we understand, the Imam, when he wants to define and describe Imam Hussein alayhi salam, describes the holy Imam salamullah alayhi by speaking about the way in which the Imam alayhi salam is the inheritor of these different prophets. The first line of this ziyarah, as we know and recite very regularly, is Assalamu alayka ya warith Adama safwatillah, that peace and blessings be upon you, ya Aba Abdullah, O you who is the inheritor of Adam, the chosen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. An analysis of this line from Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam. The first question comes with regards to the meaning of ziyarah and ziyaratul Hussein in more specifically. Quranul Kareem mentions wajtanibu qawl az-zur, and also mentions hatta zurtumul maqabir. This zurtum or wajtanibu qawl az-zur are the same words from which the word ziyarah comes. As we understand in the Arabic language, one of the names for saying and committing or uttering that which is not true, in other words, saying a lie, is zur. وَاجْتَنِبُوا قَوْلَ الزُّورِ. Why? Because zur referred to turning away from a certain thing. When a person says that which is not true, he is turning away from the truth. In the same way, ziyarah came from this word, why? To turn away. Because when I perform the ziyarah and visitation of any personality, I turn away from all else other than that personality that I'm doing the ziyarah of. That's why it was called ziyarah. I turn away from everything else other than Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, and I focus all of my attention on that individual. With regards to ziyarah, Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam mentions in the ahadith with regards to the philosophy of me reciting a ziyarah or going to the ziyarah. He says, إِذَا أَحْبَبْتَ رَجُلًا فَأَخْبَرَهُ أَنْ وَفَأَخْبَرْهُ أَنْ. If you love an individual, inform that individual about the love that you have. Why? Because this will increase the love between these two individuals. So I have a love for a certain family member or friend. Tell that person, express to that person the love that you have. The effect of this is that this increases the love between you two. Ulama use this hadith to express the philosophy and the reasoning behind ziyarah. That when I recite the ziyarah of any imam, any infallible, this is me expressing my love towards that infallible. And in the way that the imam says love increases between me and my brother, or me and my relative, or me and my friend, when a person expresses his or her love to Imam Hussein alayhi salam through the ziyarah, this increases their love for Imam Hussein and increases the love of Imam Hussein alayhi salam for that individual. As we know, with regards to Ziyaratul Hussein, before we can get to analyze that sentence, mostly when we discuss the ziyarah of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we tend to discuss the merits and the virtues that a person gains and is given and is granted by reciting this ziyarah or performing this ziyarah. Because as we know, you can look through all of the different a'mal and the different rewards for doing different types of actions, but you will find that the ziyarah of Hussein alayhi salam is unique. Why? When it came to Eid al-Hajj, Eid al-Fitr, the day of Arafah, all occasions, 15th of Sha'ban, Laylatul Qadr, all of these occasions in my calendar where I'm said to do certain dua or supplication, or there's a certain thing that is commemorated or remembered, in all of these events in the calendar, A'imma Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam told us to recite a certain ziyarah of Hussein alayhi salam. That when it came to the Eid of Hajj, or Eid al-Fitr, or the day of Arafah, or 15th of Sha'ban, or the nights of Qadr, wherever we went throughout the year, Imam Hussein's ziyarah accompanied us. Why? You don't find anything else which is so frequently recited on all of these occasions other than the ziyarah and reciting the visitation. Why? Because what is the relationship between Imam Hussein alayhi salam and the 15th of Sha'ban? 15th of Sha'ban, I commemorate or remember the birth of Sahib al-Asr, Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu al-Sharif. So why then am I ordered to recite a ziyarah? Or on the nights of Qadr, when I'm meant to write my destiny by dua and supplication, why do I have to do a ziyarah of Hussein alayhi salam? One of the qualities of this ziyarah was that Allah made us recite this ziyarah on all of these occasions. Why? For me to understand that the fact that today I'm able to celebrate the Eid of Fitr, or that today I'm able to do the a'mal of Arafah, or today that I'm able to understand my Imam on 15th of Sha'ban, was because of Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. That if Allahumma salli ala, that if I didn't have Abu Abdullah, I wouldn't have any of these munasibat, I wouldn't have any of these occasions. And so I was told by my A'imma and Ahlul Bayt to thank Hussein alayhi salam on all of these occasions, that without you I wouldn't have deen, I wouldn't have religion. When we look at the merits mentioned, some of the merits are sometimes confusing to the mind as to how A'imma and the Prophet of Islam himself spoke about the merits and the virtues of someone that would visit Hussein alayhi salam. The book Kamilu Ziyarat of Ibn Qulaway is one of the most authentic books of hadith that we have. And there's a discussion in the Hawza about its authenticity, and Sayyid Khu'i had a certain opinion of Kamilu Ziyarat. In Kamilu Ziyarah, this hadith is mentioned, that a person during the time of Imam al-Sadiq, salawatullah wa salamu alayhi, wished to go on the ziyarah. As we know, the ziyarah only began after the death of Hussein alayhi salam. It only began during the 6th Imam's time. Because before that, if anyone goes and is seen to have been visiting Imam Hussein alayhi salam, he's killed. So it was during the time of As-Sadiq salamullah alayhi that people began, and it started that they would go to perform the ziyarah. One person says, I went to perform the ziyarah. I found out that if I wish to visit my Imam alayhi salam in Karbala, I will have to do so in the middle of the night. Because if I go when there is still light in the sky, I will be identified. There may be Abbasid, there may be other people, haters of Ahlul Bayt, they'll kill me. So in a form of taqiyya, if I wish to do Ziyaratul Hussein, I can only do it in the middle of the night time. The narration says this person gets to Karbala. As we know, in Karbala till today lives Banu Asad the tribe, who were there when Imam Hussein alayhi salam enters into Karbala. He meets them, he speaks to them. This person says, when I got to Karbala, now there's no dome, there's no dhari, there's no shrine, nothing. He says, I spoke to Banu Asad, I said, I am a follower of Ahlul Bayt. I have come here from Medina to visit Hussein alayhi salam. But there's no markings, and I want to go in the middle of the night so no one can see me. Can you guide me as to where his grave is? So the tribe of Banu Asad told him that stand on this point, walk this many steps forward and right and left. Then, as we know, all of those that have been blessed by being right next to the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam say that there's a certain fragrance that is specific to his grave. That there's a fragrance that emanates from the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam that no one has smelt before. That's why Jabir bin Abdullah al-Ansari, how does he recognize? He can smell that fragrance from the grave. This person was told, when you'll walk in that direction, then this direction, you will get to a certain place. Use your smell to find out where the grave of Imam Hussein alayhi salam is and do the ziyarah. He says it was midnight. There was complete darkness in the sky. I left where I was staying. I followed this person's instructions. I'm walking and walking and walking until I got to the place where I thought was the grave. However, as I was walking, I could hear that there's someone around in that area. And suddenly when that person heard me walking towards him, he stopped and he said, Salamun alaykum to me. I said, Wa alaykum as-salam. My heart stopped. If I'm seen here caught visiting Imam Hussein alayhi salam, I'll be killed. Now I don't know, it's dark, whether this person is a follower of Ahlul Bayt, loves Ahlul Bayt, has the wilayah of Amir al-Mu'mineen or not. This person began speaking to me, my heart was relaxed and settled. I realized that this person is from followers of Ahlul Bayt. He said to me, oh brother, you wish to do ziyarah of Hussein, go away at this time, come back 3 or 4 hours later. He said, look, by 3 or 4 hours, it will nearly be the time of Fajr. There will be more light in the sky. I'll be caught. I don't want to be seen doing the ziyarah. He said, look, there's no choice. Go back and come in 3 or 4 hours. The narration says this person goes. He comes back without any choice. He's come all the way from Medina to visit Hussein alayhi salam. He says, I came around 3 or 4 a.m. As I was walking this time, again I saw that person was standing there. When I saw him, I asked him, what was the reason that previously when I came, you had prevented me from coming here? When a person then reads the rest of the narration, their mind becomes baffled as to who Imam Hussein actually is. Why is it? This person says, as we know, a part of the aqeedah of the school of Ahlul Bayt is an angel can come in the form of a human being, as Quranul Kareem mentions as well. It could be that an angel comes in the form of an insan and sits in the majlis. This is aqeedah and belief of the followers of Ahlul Bayt. This person says, I am an angel, a malak, in the form of a human being. He said, okay, why have you come? He says, the reason why I have come is a long time ago, Nabiullah Musa alayhi salam, the Kaleem of Allah, had requested Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for a time where he could do ziyarah of Hussein alayhi salam and no one else would be present. At that moment that you had come to do the ziyarah, that was the time that Musa salamullah alayhi was granted by Allah, and Musa was doing the ziyarah. I was, as an angel, was kept there to make sure that no one else can come and Musa himself can do ziyaratul Hussein alayhi salam. Can a person imagine that the Anbiya, who are ulul azm, who are Kaleem of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wish themselves to have a time where they can solely do ziyarah of Imam Hussein salamullah alayhi in Karbala? And when people read these narrations of the ziyarah, sometimes a person's mind is skeptical. How can it be that Musa alayhi salam himself wants? How can it be that the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam says that it equals 70 Hajj and Umrah of the Prophet of Islam to visit Hussein alayhi salam? People have in their mind, no, this can't be true. Hadith has been made up. This is exaggeration. What's the ishkal and criticism? They say, look, Hajj, wajib or mustahab? At least once in my life, Hajj is wajib. Ziyaratul Hussein, wajib or mustahab? Now there were certain ulama that said it was wajib. Allama Majlisi, rahmatullah alayhi, used to believe that to go and visit Imam Hussein in Karbala is wajib at least once. But majority of ulama today, generally speaking, the 90% or more, is that it is very highly mustahab. So people say, if you are saying that the ziyarah of Hussein has more thawab than Hajj, you are saying that a mustahab act has more thawab and reward than that which is wajib, and therefore these riwayat cannot be true. The answer is a person that says this hasn't understood Sharia, hasn't understood jurisprudence and fiqh. Because if I entered in right now into this room, it's mustahab for me to say Salamun alaykum. It's wajib for a person to reply. Even the child knows that when a person initiates the salam, he gets 99 reward. And when a person replies, which is wajib, he only gets 1. So it's very easy in religion for something to be mustahab and have 99 more times reward than that which is wajib. So then why do I doubt that something like ziyarah of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein can equal 70 hajj and umrah? So what if it's wajib and this is mustahab? Wajib and mustahab has nothing to do with the reward. Ziyaratul Hussein alayhi salam therefore was something that the riwayat spoke about being one of the greatest acts a person can do in his life. And in fact sometimes we don't even realize the effect of this ziyarah. Put aside me going to visit Imam Hussein alayhi salam, just the me reciting the ziyarah, just on my tongue being Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. I don't understand the effects. I'm unaware of the realities of these statements. One of the ulama in Najaf was asked by one of the people that used to attend his masjid. He said, when I pray salah, I don't have concentration. It's like, Allahu Akbar, my concentration goes. So he said, is there anything in the riwayat that Ahlul Bayt gave us to make sure that when I pray, my concentration remains? So the alim, Sayyid Abdul Hadi, said, are you crazy? All our riwayat have is how to concentrate in salah. He said, really, that much? He said, yes. He says, tell me one thing. Sayyid Abdul Hadi says, before you say Allahu Akbar, say Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. After you finish your salah, say Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. He said, why? He said, don't you know, when a person says Assalamu alayka ya Abu Abdullah, shaitan goes away from that place. Therefore, if you say it, then you pray your salah, shaitan cannot play with your mind for salah. There were so many things in salah, in the salam of Imam Hussein alayhi salam that I didn't understand. Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salam, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa gave us this ziyarah when? Ziyaratul Waritha, as we know, like the other ziyarat, like Ashura, like Nahiya, like Jami'ah, all of these ziyarat have a reason why they were given. Like Ziyaratul Ashura, there's a hadith which says that the Prophet of Islam, Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, no Prophet of God has suffered the amount that you have suffered, Ya Rasulullah. Why? Because the Prophet of Islam knew that in my life what's going to take place, and after I die what they will do to my daughter and Amir al-Mu'mineen and my children. He knew all of these things. So when all of these pieces of information were revealed to the Prophet of Islam, what they will do in Karbala and Fadak and all of these things, the Prophet of Islam's heart was filled with grief. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in the form of Hadithul Qudsi, gave him a certain gift to remove the grief of his heart. What was that gift? Ziyarat Ashura. Ziyarat Ashura, yes, was given to us by 5th and 6th Imams alayhim as-salam. But in actual fact, initially it was Hadithul Qudsi given to the heart of the Prophet of Islam to remove his grief. In the same way, Ziyaratul Waritha has a reason, has a sabab why it was given. That when the ziyarah of Hussein alayhi salam began during Imam as-Sadiq's time, people would go. They said we would go. We would be near the grave. We would stand there. We didn't really know what to recite. We'd come back. So when the first zawar, the first followers who would go to visit Imam Hussein had gone and come back, they came to Medina and they told the Imam, Ya ibn Rasulullah, we went. We were honored to be able to visit your grandfather. But there's an issue. He said, what's the issue? He says, the issue is we got there, but we didn't know what to recite. We went straight there. We were standing next to the head of Imam Hussein. We don't know what to recite. We stood next to the chest. We stood next to the feet. We didn't know what to recite. Can you give us something to recite when we visit him? Next to the head, next to the chest, next to the feet. When this request was given as a gift to the Ummah, as-Sadiq alayhi salam gave ziyaratul Waritha. That this is the ziyarah. When you go today as well, you will recite most of it or part of it, and there are different versions of it that you'll recite next to the head of Imam Hussein, next to the chest, next to the feet, and of the other people that are there. Once we have understood this background of the ziyarah, the question comes that the Imam alayhi salam mentions that Imam Hussein is the inheritor of these Anbiya and Prophets. What was meant by this inheritance? The first thing we understand, inheritance in jurisprudence today, a person dies. That person will be the inheritor of the deceased, who is closest living individual of the deceased. In other words, when the Imam says Adam, who has inherited Adam al-Hussein, and the inheritor of Isa, and the inheritor of Ibrahim, inheritance only goes to the closest relative of that person. In other words, Imam al-Sadiq was saying, if you want to see the closest person to all Anbiya, look at Hussein ibn Ali alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala. If you want to see that person who is closest in his character and his life to all of the Anbiya that were mentioned, Ulul Azm, look at Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. When it comes to this issue of inheritance, there's a difference of opinion. That the Imam says the inheritor of all of these prophets. Some said this was referring to physical inheritance. Like what? Musa alayhi salam, his staff. The staff of Musa is where today? It's with the Imam of the time. It was passed down as inheritance. The shirt of Yusuf alayhi salam. This was also something passed as inheritance. The ring of Sulaiman, the turban of the Prophet of Islam sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi. All of these were physical pieces of inheritance that were sent down. So according to some ulama, when the Imam says, Assalamu alayka ya waritha Adam wa Nuh wa Isa wa Ibrahim wa Musa, this referred to the inheritance that he has gained, the physical objects that he has. That peace be upon you, O that man who has the physical inheritance of all of those prophets. This was one idea. The other idea was no. Today, the way in which we sit in majlis, the way in which I mourn, the way in which a majlis is recited, all of these things are those which have been inherited but aren't physical. In the same way, it's very possible that something can be inherited which isn't physical, but I've inherited it from my forefathers. In the same way, when it came to the warith of Anbiya al-Hussein, the one who has inherited the prophets, ulama said no, why does it have to be physical? Yes, these things were passed down one after the other, but why is it that in the ziyarah we say it's physical? Rather, they said when the Imam says Ya warith, Ya warith, Ya warith, he was saying all of those prophets that were mentioned have certain qualities. Those qualities are found in Hussein alayhi salam. Like what? They said a prophet of God cannot be a prophet of God until and unless his knowledge is perfect. In the same way, Imam Hussein alayhi salam inherited this perfect ilm and knowledge. This was one idea. Or they said, if you look at all of those prophets that are mentioned, other than Adam alayhi salam, all are ulul azm. A prophet who is ulul azm is that one who has very strong perseverance and patience. Now, all prophets of God have patience and sabr. But ulul azm had a greater level of sabr. Fasbir kama sabara ulul azmi min ar-rusul, Quran says. Patience of the ulul azm. So one idea that the ulama presented is that Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when he is said to be an inheritor of all of these prophets, means what? Means that he inherited that highest level of sabr and patience of those prophets of God. Because if you look in the history of Karbala, we are told, when the number of shuhada increased from the army of Hussein alayhi salam, the contentment on the face of Imam Hussein alayhi salam increased. Today, if I see more people dying from my family, I lose hope. The riwayat say Hussein alayhi salam was complete opposite. The more bodies that would be placed in front of him, the more his conviction and his contentment and his rida with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would increase. And so some say the Imam as-Sadiq was talking about this patience. With regards to this, to understand the sabr of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, there is a riwayah mentioned by the scholar Shaheed al-Thani. Shaheed al-Thani in this riwayah speaks about a prophet of God. We don't know the name of this prophet of God. This prophet of God has a tragedy in his life. Hadith mention that the greatest bounty a person can gain in this life is if he is given by Allah a youthful child. So I have a child who is a youth. This is the greatest bounty of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this earth. And the greatest tragedy someone can have on this earth is when that youthful child is taken away from the old father's eyes in this dunya while the father is alive. There was a prophet of God. He had a youthful son. This youthful son, during the life of the prophet of God, dies. When he died, this prophet of God found it very difficult to cope with this tragedy. That my son was in front of my eyes, the apple of my eye, the core and the center of my heart has gone. This prophet of God in the community, what was his role? His job was to deal with people's disputes, and he was a judge. So someone comes and says, I have a financial dispute, Ya Nabi Allah, says, I will solve it for you. Another person has an issue of Sharia, I solve it for you. This was his job. When this tragedy takes place with this Prophet of God, that his youthful son is taken away, this Prophet says, I'm unable to go out with the people, I'm unable to do this job of qadawa and being a judge. So he closes his doors, he says, I stayed at home. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to show this Prophet of God what is the meaning of true sabr and patience. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends, according to this riwayah, 2 angels in the form of human beings. These 2 angels get to the door of this Prophet of God. They knock on the door of this Prophet. They're knocking. The Prophet of God goes to the door, opens. He sees that these 2 youth are there. He said, how can I help you? They said, Ya Nabi Allah, we have a dispute amongst one another. We know that you solve people's disputes. You are a judge. Can we enter and can you solve our issue? He says, look, since my son has died, I don't have the courage. My heart doesn't allow me to solve people's issues. Maybe you can go to this other person, this other prophet, this other Abdus Saleh. They said, Ya Nabi Allah, we've come from very far. Which is true, they were malaika, they were angels. So we've come from very far. If you can just... He said, okay, come in quickly and I'll see what I can do. These 2 angels said, we entered in and we explained what the issue was. One of them says, look, I have a farm. My farmland, where it is, this person has cattle. So he has sheep and cows and whatever. Every single day he takes his cattle and his cattle walk over my grass and walk over my crops. And they return doing the same thing and they destroy a lot of the part of my farmland. This is my problem. Tell him to stop doing this or compensate me that I have trees, I have plants. He's destroying with his cattle. So this was mudda'i. So the Prophet of God tells the other person, is this true? Every single day you pass his farmland with your cattle and your cattle destroy some of his plants or crops. And you also come back the same way when you're going on your journey and the same thing happens. Is this true? You don't compensate him? He says, Ya Nabi Allah, it's true. But listen to why. He says, why? He says, because there is a source of water at the other side of his farmland. There's water at the other side there. The only way we can get to that water is we go through his farmland. And yes, sometimes some of his plants are destroyed or damaged. But I need to make sure that my cattle remain alive. There's a lake or whatever on the other side of this farm. What else can I do? So the Prophet of God then goes to the first person. Is this true? He said, yes. He said, what do you want me to do? So the person says, look, this individual, when he built or he started making his farmland and he started to sow the crops, he did it in the middle of the road. Like here you have a freeway. He did it in the middle of the freeway. The only way we can get to the lake is to go through the freeway, and in the middle there's a farm. So what fault is it of ours? There's no other way for us to get to that source of water. He should have known in the first place that if you are going to plant your trees and your crops in the middle of the freeway, naturally it's going to be damaged. What else do you expect? In the middle of the road, you have your trees and crops. A car, for example, today will come and destroy it. So the Prophet of God says to that person, the owner of the farm, look, if you knew that you are planting in the middle of the road, that means you knew it was going to be destroyed. That means you shouldn't be upset when some of your plants are destroyed. These malaika, they said, Ya Nabi Allah, this is exactly what we're trying to tell you. He says, what do you mean? You said to us, if you knew that you are planting it in the middle of the road, be prepared for those plants to be destroyed. Ya Nabi Allah, you knew that this was the dunya and the world. Whatever you were given in this world would never stay in the way that those plants will never remain in the middle of the road. Therefore, when it was destroyed and taken away, you shouldn't be upset that it was taken away by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This was the idea of patience, which you find in Hussein alayhi salam. Why? Today, you went to the bank. You saw a person who was working as a cashier. This person, someone gives him $5,000. His face is the same. Someone withdraws then $20,000. His face is the same. Someone came and deposited 50,000. Still, his face doesn't change. So you came up to him, you said, are you crazy? So what do you mean? He says, someone gives you money, you're not happy. Someone takes away money, you're not sad. What would he say? He said, when it's not mine in the first place, when they give it, I take it. When they take it away, I give it back. In the same way, the things I was given in this dunya didn't belong to me. So when Imam Hussein was given Aliyun al-Akbar, when he was given, he took it. When he was taken back, he said, thank you, Ya Allah, for giving me this child. That child didn't belong to me in the first place. This was the patience of Abu Abdullah. Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas didn't belong to me. Allah is the owner of all things. I knew in this dunya these things will go away. When they were taken away, I understood this is the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's why they said through each tragedy and shahada, the conviction on the face of Hussein increased. This was the idea of ulama, that when Imam as-Sadiq alayhi salatu was-salam for the love of Sayyid al-Shuhada alayhi salam, recite a second salawat. That when the Imam speaks of Ya Warith, Ya Warith, Ya Warith, O inheritor of all of these prophets, he meant the one that has inherited that perfect patience of all of the prophets of God. Another idea, however, with regards to the ziyarah of Waritha is that no, it wasn't one or two things that he inherited from all prophets of God. Rather, each prophet that was mentioned in the ziyarah had certain qualities which Imam Hussein alayhi salam then later inherited. So then when we come to Assalamu alayka, Ya Waritha Adam Safwatillah, the ulama say, look, there are certain qualities in Adam, specific qualities, that we also find in Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And this is the meaning of the ziyarah. Each of these prophets has certain qualities and characteristics found in the Imam. So when it came to Adam alayhi salam, the first thing we were told, Nabi Adam, from his progeny, each generation, there were 9 continuous generations of Anbiya and prophets that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had gifted Adam alayhi salam with. In the same way as Imam Mehdi salamullah alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, mentions in Ziyaratul Nahiyah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala placed the A'imma in your dhurriyyah, in your generations, in your lineage. In the way that there were 9 continuous after from Adam alayhi salam, there were 9 continuous from Imam Hussein alayhi salam. And the 9th of these prophets of God from the lineage of Adam was who? Was Nabiullah Nuh alayhi salam, who Allah gave a very long life, 2,500 years. In the same way, the 9th from the lineage of Imam Hussein alayhi salam has been given a very long life. This was one thing that he inherited. The second thing he inherited, as we know, Nabi Adam alayhi salam sees in front of his eyes the death or the murder rather of his son Habil. When Qabil kills Habil, and Nabi Adam asks, where is my son? Qabil takes him to the place where he committed the crime. When Adam alayhi salam would see the blood from the head of his son, he would cry so much that the narrations say he cried for 40 years, 40. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saw that he is crying so much, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala did 2 things. Number 1, he told him, Ya Nabi Allah Adam, you have lost your son, but let me tell you of someone who will lose his son in a much more difficult way than you. And he told him the way in which Hussein loses Ali Akbar alayhi salam on Ashura. This is the first thing. The second thing, as a gift to Adam alayhi salam for the death of Habil, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him a son by the name of Hibatullah Sheikh. Hiba meaning the gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is through Sheikh alayhi salam that the prophethood and the infallibility and the sharia continues. The same thing we find with Imam Hussein alayhi salam, that Imam Hussein has a youthful son who is killed, Ali Akbar alayhi salam, and in the way that Hibatullah is the one that continues the prophethood, Imam Sajjad alayhi salam was a gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to continue the imamah from the progeny of Imam Hussein in Karbala. The same thing was inherited. When we look at Hibatullah and Nabi Adam alayhi salam, Hibatullah was that one of the sons of Adam that was given all of the knowledge of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah gave to Adam alayhi salam. In the same way, Imam Sajjad was given that divine knowledge that was also given to his father Hussein alayhi salam. Hibatullah says, we'll find many comparisons. Hibatullah says, my father when he was dying, was on his deathbed, he said, Ya Sheikh, go to one of these mountains. Your father wishes to taste the fruits of Jannah. He's in sakarat, he's in ihtidar, that time when my soul is coming out from my body. Adam says, this is a difficult time for me. Go to one of these mountains. I think you will find one of the angels of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala there. When you see an angel of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tell that angel that Nabiullah Adam wishes to taste some of the fruits of Jannah so that it becomes easier for him to pass this time of ihtidar and sakarat when he's about to die. Sheikh said, I left my father. When I left my father, I went up to the mountain that he said, and I saw 3 or 4 angels that were there already. I came up to them, they said, Sheikh, what do you want? I said, I'm looking for an angel of God to give my father certain fruits from Jannah. He wants it to relieve his pain. So there, one of the angels was Jibreel. Jibreel says, Ya Sheikh, we as the malaika have come down to tell you that your father, the trip that you took from the deathbed of your father to this mountain, during that time your father has already passed away. We have come down to give condolences to you and your father. Again, we found certain things inherited for Imam Hussein alayhi salam. What? Sheikh couldn't be next to his father when his father passed away. Sajjad says, my father passed away, I couldn't be next to Abu Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam. Sheikh says, I came back. With all of these malaika, we got to the body of my father Adam. He says, I was fine. We did the ghusl. We did the kafan. He said, at one point when we were doing the kafan of Adam alayhi salam, I was unable to control myself and I said, Ya wahshata, and I began to cry and Jibreel controlled me. He says, then I took Adam alayhi salam. Jibreel says, Ya Sheikh, Ya Habitallah, stand. We will be behind you and you will pray the Salatul Janazah of your father, and Sheikh recites the Salatul Janazah of Adam alayhi salam. But I saw, yes, there are many things inherited, but there's also a difference between the way in which Hussein dies and Adam dies. Because when Adam passes away, Jibreel comes down, relaxfully comes down and says, we have come to give condolences. But when Hussein is killed, there are 2 occasions in history. Jibreel was unable to control himself. He would come in such a way and he would lament and mourn. The first was when Amirul Mu'mineen was struck on the 19th, that Jibreel uncontrollably would come down and Masjid Kufa could hear the cries, Ta'addamat wallah arkanul oda. The second was that when Hussein is killed. At that moment, Jibreel can control himself. The other malaika are there. But when Hussein is killed, Jibreel says, I couldn't control myself. I came down and I said, قَدْ قُتِلَ الْحُسَيْنُ بِكَرْبَلَاء قَدْ ذُبِحَ الْحُسَيْنُ بِكَرْبَلَاء. Also, I saw another difference. Sheikh, you were very easily able to do the ghusl and kafan of your father Adam. Very easily you were able to bury Adam alayhi salam. Will you hear how Sajjad buried Hussein alayhi salam? The narrations say that when, by way of miracle, Imam Sajjad salamullah alayhi comes to Karbala after 3 days, he first goes and buries all of the other martyrs and shuhada. Why? So that no one can come and say that, look, Sajjad buries his father first and his family first, then he buried the others. No, first he buried the others. Then he goes further away. His father's grave is here, body is here. He said, I went further away. I saw a small body cut into pieces. I tried to pick up this body and bring it back so I could bury him next to my father. But I saw that there are so many pieces to this body that I have to leave this body here. And so I had to bury Abbas away from Hussein alayhi salam. He says, then I would go and I would try to bury my father Hussein. Will you hear how he buries his father? He says, there were so many pieces to the body of Hussein. Sajjad takes his abba and he collects all of these pieces. One by one he collects these pieces and he places it in this grave and he says, Assalamu alayka ya abata. Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. The night of Arba'een has come, the night of ziyarah of Hussein alayhi salam. The night when Sajjad and Zaynab and Kulthum have left already Sham to go towards Karbala to be of the first za'ireen of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But before we go into the Masa'ib of Sham, I remember there was a narration where Di'bal, who is the poet of Ahlul Bayt, Di'bal said, I came one day to my master Imam Rida in Medina. Imam Rida was sitting in the masjid when Di'bal says, Imam saw me, Imam called me to sit right next to him. Di'bal says, I sat next to my Imam. The Imam says, Ya Di'bal, have you bought anything for my father, any pieces of poetry? Di'bal says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, how could I come to you without bringing you some pieces of poetry for your father? And so he mentions, what are those pieces of poetry? I'll recite those pieces of poetry of Di'bal, which till today are recited every single year by the mu'mineen. The pieces of poetry that made Imam Rida alayhi salam cry. Di'bal says, مدارس آيات خلت من تلاوة ومنزل وحي مغفر العرسات لآل رسول الله بخيف من منا وبالتعريف والركن والجمرات ديار علي والحسين وجعفرين والحمزة والسجاد ذي الثفنات. He says those places, those houses where Quran used to be revealed and where Quran used to be interpreted, the houses of Hussein and Ali and Sajjad now are houses which are empty, for no longer do any of these people stay on this earth. Then Di'bal would say, وقبر بكوفان وأخرى بطيبة وقبر بفخ لها صلوات. He said, and one is buried in Najaf, the others are buried in Medina. And he would say, وقبر ببغداد لنفس زكية. And one is buried in Baghdad, Imam al-Kadhim. Imam Rida says, I said, Di'bal, also add one extra line. Imam said, Di'bal says, which extra line? Ya Imam? Imam Rida says, وَقَبْرٌ بِطُوسٍ مَا لَهَا مِن مُصِيبَةٍ. That yes, there is one in Najaf and in Karbala and in Medina and Baghdad, but there is also one in Tus and Khurasan. Di'bal says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, never have I heard that anyone from Ahlul Bayt is buried in Khurasan. Imam Rida says, their time will come when I will die and I will be poisoned and I will be gharib and I will be buried in Khurasan. Suddenly they say one of the people from the house of Imam Rida comes. He says, Ya Imam, Ya ibn Rasulullah, stop mentioning the way in which you will die and your shahada, for the women in your family have fainted hearing your martyrdom, your shahada. I say, Ya Imam Rida, your sisters fainted hearing your martyrdom. Zaynab saw the body of Hussein and the hands of Abu al-Fayyad. What happens then to Zaynab and Kulthum? Because Zaynab would say a time would come in Ashura when we would hear the horses are moving. I would say, why are the horses moving when Hussein has been killed? Zaynab says, I looked out of the tents. Umar bin Saad was telling them, loot the family of Hussein, loot their tents and set their tents on fire. Then Zaynab says, then I would hear the horses moving once again. And I looked as to why the horses were moving. I saw Umar bin Saad place Hussein in the middle of Karbala. He said, the horses from the west of Karbala go to the east, and the horses of the east go to the west and crush the body of Hussein. Zaynab says, then I would see them loot the body of my brother. One person would come to try and take the ring of Hussein. Zaynab says he would pull, but the ring wouldn't come out until he would take out a dagger from his pocket. Zaynab says he would then cut the finger of Abu Abdullah. This is what Zaynab has seen, the tragedies that Zaynab has seen.
And so when they would enter into the prisons of Sham and Syria, and they would be lamenting for Hussein, a time comes where Zainab says, I saw Sayyid al-Sajjad being called by Yazid. Sajjad says, I came out of the prison, I went towards Yazid. Yazid says, Yo Sajjad, Ya Abul Hasan, I wish to set you free and you can go. Sajjad says, no, we have certain conditions. The first condition is that we have a house where we can commemorate Abu Abdullah. The second condition is that all of the things that were looted, you will give those things back. Yazid says, I accept. Zainab says, we took the women and the children, we would enter into this house and we would lament and we would mourn Hussein alayhi salam until Sajjad says, suddenly all of the things that were stolen would come back. Sajjad says, a shirt covered in blood would come. Zainab says, Sajjad, do you know about this shirt? Sajjad says, tell me, oh my auntie. Zainab says, this is the shirt which was sewn by my mother Fatima to Zahra, and as she would be sewing this shirt, she would cry, saying, this is the shirt in which they will kill my son Hussein. Then a flag would come, the flag of Abu al-Fadl al-Abbas, and all of these things would return. Then one by one the head of the Shuhada would come. That the head of Abbas comes. Kulthum says, I ran to the head of Abbas. The head of Qasim comes. Farwa says, I ran to the head of Qasim. The head of Akbar would come. Layla runs to the head of Akbar. Then suddenly Ra'sul Hussein, the head of Hussein would come. The women would begin to cry, Husaynan wa Husaynan wa Husayna, Ghariban wa Ghariban wa Ghariba. Zainab says, I would get to the head of Hussein. Then the narration says, two small heads would come, but no one would go towards those heads. The women of Sham would say, what has happened to the mother of these two children? Has the mother died? Fidda says, I ran towards those heads. I said, no, the mother of Aun and Muhammad hasn't died, but first she wishes to cry for Hussein, then she will cry for her own children. على لعنة الله للقوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون اللهم اغفر للمؤمنين والمؤمنات والمسلمين والمسلمات الأحياء منهم والأموات تابع بيننا وبينهم بالخيرات إنك مجيب الدعوات إنك رافع الدرجات إنك سامع الأصوات إنك قاضي الحاجات إنك على كل شيء قدير. يا حسين.